operations supervisor left the department at the end of December. So we're working with HR trying to actually reclassify the position, and we'll keep you appraised as to where we move there. But John Fellhans, the Oxnard operations supervisor, he'll be overseeing both airports for operations for this time being. So we're short-staffed, but we're still moving. The other item that I wanted to bring up to you is we have the county hangars that are to be built on the northeast end of the airport, about 41 hangars at Camarillo Airport. Those hangars are looking to, we're going through the permitting process right now. We've done our first set of reviews and we're ready to resubmit again. So that should be taking place. There should be a shovel on the ground sometime in March or April, and we'll probably do a small shovel in the ground ceremony for you to be there if should you wish to be there. The other item at Camarillo is we're actually we actually have a helicopter business. It's called Orvic Helicopters, where they developed that. Actually, they assumed a lease of a hangar that was built by the tower, and they had a long-term lease, and that lease is actually coming to an end as far as the land is concerned. So this is actually going to be the first time that the airport, during my tenure, that we see a reversion on a facility coming to the county, and we're actually going to be charging county facility rate versus just land, and it's a huge change. It's about, what's the difference, Madeline? $4,000 about? Yeah.
I have to look.
So that's happening on February 28th, and they have the option to stay as a renter of the facility for another 5 years, and they've exercised that option. Two other things that I have for you is it looks like, and the city of Oxnard can probably talked about it, the senior center, it appears that the project is potentially going to move forward, but I'll let you guys fill in that if you wish in a second. And then the last item is for Oxnard Airport. We continue to get interest at the west end of the airport, where we have that vacant lot where the buses park for aviation use. So we've been talking to our consultants, trying to figure out what is that could go there. The current tenant, Aspen Helicopters, they're looking to potentially expand in that area, but we're trying to see what would work best for the airport long term. Obviously, we do not want to lose a long-term tenant. We want for them to be successful, but at the same time, we're trying to figure out and have that balance as to what's the best for the airport in the future. So that's my update, and I would like to welcome the new Camarillo City Council members to this body, and thank you.
Okay. Does anyone have any
Chair.
questions on reports?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Excuse me. The report on the Aspen helicopters and the property, there is a line in there about soil testing. What are the concerns that we have about soil testing? What was there before?
What we have is we're doing just a surface environmental because apparently, and this happened, obviously many years ago, the county apparently bought that property from somebody else, and we're not sure if actually the county did some environmental before they purchased the property, and we want to make sure that the site is clean if we're going to offer it to somebody else to develop in that area.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
All right. And any other questions on the reports for item number 8? Everyone has seen the correspondence for number 9.
I have a
Yes.
question. One of the things that when I was going through all of the letters that were in this, which is great volume, I noticed that there were no notices at all about the Andrew risk involved in here. Now, is that a legal reason that they're not in the correspondence? Because essentially the first time I've seen any of the correspondence is whatever he handed me, and it was county correspondence from the Department of Airports. So why, is there a reason that they're not in the package for correspondence?
You are exactly correct. There were potential legal repercussions with sending that letter out, and at the same time, we were trying to be transparent, but at the same time, we didn't want to put Mr. Risk's businesses out in the open. So we were trying to respect his privacy as well.
Somehow, I think we got to figure out a way of handling this, because I really don't like to have that many people sitting on our doorstep dealing with an issue that we have no clue on. Now, I was fortunate enough to be pre-briefed a little bit, but I know most of the other people weren't, and I didn't feel like I needed to go out and make sure everybody knew what was going on in the background. But somehow we need to resolve the combination of individual rights and some transparency.
Sure. Maybe what we could do is probably redact the letters in the future and leave the tenant's name out, and so that you're aware of the situations that we're dealing with.
And I think, Bill, and I think the important thing, and I think Tom mentioned it, we're under litigation, and normally, we need to be careful how, what kind of information goes out. And Tom, am I wrong in saying that? Because I know of every time that somebody proposes litigation, we're told that it's best not to comment or do A, B, or C regarding that item.
You're correct that if litigation is pending, it's ideal that the parties involved not communicate about the facts.
And I respect, the
issues.
young man's,
That's fine, except that it didn't stop half of the equation from being very vocal, and there was absolutely no way we could even explain the circumstances or anything going along with it, because we didn't know it was even happening. My complaint is not necessarily getting the details, but not having any knowledge of it before you sit up here is not the way to run it.
It's an unfortunate fact in representing public entities that I've seen in my years, that the public entity very often will keep its mouth shut, so to speak, whereas the other side will make a lot of noise. And that has happened throughout my legal career, and it is unfortunate, but it does occur.
Right. We had one more question. Sean?
A question to the attorney for the Department of Airports. Isn't this correspondence subject to open records requests, though?
Bingo.
I'm not sure which correspondence you're talking about, so I don't
So
want
in this case,
to say yes or no, but
if there was correspondence, and let's say in this situation in regards to Mr. Risk and the Department of Airports, whether there was litigation or pending litigation or potential litigation, it would still be subject to open records requests. Is that correct?
yes, although there are certain exceptions for documents that are at issue in litigation that can be, if it's privileged, for example. If you're referring to the eviction notice, that was publicly posted on the
Right.
individual's hangar, so that would not be something that would be privileged. And correspondence or letters between the Department of Airports and Mr. Risk, for example, would probably be public record, yes.
Yeah.
But
And that's the part that we're not in our package.
And the lawsuits in this matter were filed in, I believe, in early December, so
Right.
that's
So,
when litigation.
so the request is that any information that could be shared with us, please put it in the correspondence so that we are very transparent and make sure that everyone has the information. That is exactly what we need on this advisory.
Will do.
All right. Next item, miscellaneous handout. Sir, did you have a question or do you have a card?
Well, I wanted to
speaker
comment on
card?
your last discussion, if I may. Some months ago, we had an ad hoc meeting to discuss the proposed lease agreement. And in the proposed lease agreement, we were adamant that there should be a means for an appeals process if there's a violation of the lease agreement.
Sir, I apologize, this is out of sort of the meeting. But if we could we talk about this after, do you want the whole board to hear it?
Well, I wanted to respond to
Okay.
your discussion there. Okay.
I apologize. It's the legal part of this. I would love to have a full, open conversation, but I apologize that we're not able to. But can we follow up with you afterwards? Thank you. Okay, the next item is information. Is there any other information that's here needing to be done?
No, unless you have any questions.
Authority comments?
Madam Chair, can you hear me? One of the things that was brought up today was transparency about staff, and also we're finding out things What I'm thinking is that maybe what we need to have a meeting for, kind of like a retreat, so all the new authority members can understand what our responsibilities are as commissioners and what staff responsibilities are, and also the public for that matter. So we're all on the same page, and do we need an attorney? We're at JPA, to kind of give us a little historical information on what our responsibilities are, you know, especially having new board members and so forth. And I think that maybe, I'm not sure if we'll have sufficient time when we bring back the information on the term limits and so forth, and maybe half of the meeting could be the term limits and the other half on the responsibilities. That,
Roles and responsibilities.
you know, that way, you know, the transparency issue comes up, you know, because I've been in the airport authority as a council member for many, many years, as well as most of us have. And we have new individuals that are in the authority that I think it'd be kind of nice to kind of refresh what our responsibilities are as commissioners, as staff members, and also what the public expects from us too.
I think that's a very good point.
What do you think? We
Yes, I think we
give staff direction to,
We could do that. It's very important for the public to understand what the role is of this advisory commission and how do we work.
Yes.
and invite council, you know, to help us out, even if we have to pay them accordingly.
So, so for the advisory commission, which everybody is appointed by the board of supervisors, we offered some refresher training on what the roles are there, and so that they don't violate the Brown Act as well.
We can call them,
We can do that
call
for
it a
the authority
retreat.
as
For the authority, we're going to look at their options and we'll report back on that.
'Cause I know when I became council member 200 years ago, we had council member 101, and also as a supervisor, we had CSAC as a similar one too. And I think, you know, it's and I'm sure the league also has, you know.
Tim? Lynn?
Thank you very much. I'd just like to conclude the meeting by expressing my, fact that I'm heartbroken about losing the director of airports, and I wasn't able to attend his celebration of life because I was out of the country. And, I worked with him for many, many years on this authority, and he put everything into his job. He took his job so seriously. And when we talk about sometimes, the public perception of public servants, that public servants, don't work hard enough, or maybe they're overpaid, or, they're just hanging in there to get their retirement. And I'm sorry to kind of use that kind of language, but I just see a guy who was such an exemplary public servant and someone who I have so much respect for. And it's a tragedy. His life, the loss of his life is a tragedy, but hopefully someday we'll know why he left this earth so early. And I want to say to the commission members that without the staff that has supported him, it would be very difficult to make this transition. And I acknowledge how difficult it must have been given the circumstances behind Todd's passing, that it was just really, really difficult to get through. So I've thought a lot about it. I felt badly that I wasn't able to show up for his celebration of life, but I just wanted to say in passing that, or at the end of the meeting, how much I hold this public servant in such high regard, and that nobody should ever question for one moment that his purpose for being here wasn't to get a paycheck, even though we all have to work. It wasn't for his retirement. It wasn't for anything else other than the fact he loved airports. He loved flying. He loved leading this organization, and I just have a tremendous amount of respect for him. So I want to just acknowledge that, say farewell to Todd, and we'll hopefully not see you soon, but we'll see you again.
Is there anyone else?
Amen.
Are we on miscellaneous or
We are
authority
on
comments?
comments, number 12,
Comments?
authority
12.
comments?
Authority.
Yes.
Yes.
I did not attend the gentleman's service, and I had other things that were going on, and I couldn't attend. My heart goes out to his kids and his wife. Suicide is a very big deal. If you pay attention to how many people from military service are killing themselves every day, that came up by my mayor pro tem at our city councilman when we gave a moment of silence for Todd's loss of life. But there are members of the public. If you ever come across somebody and they seem like they're having a problem, maybe just reach out and just talk to them a little bit. You'd be surprised how much hello makes a difference. The other part that I'd like to bring up is I didn't understand, because at least when the training that I got when I started on the city council, every item there's an opportunity for the public to speak, and the last gentleman that spoke or tried to speak, I thought that there would be an opportunity for him to address. I didn't mean that I don't believe that there would be an opportunity to engage in a dialogue, but when Mr. Timms wanted to address, I think he should have been allowed to address. And the service for the public, it's the highest and best calling, and you should also be held to the highest standards. If I'm getting paid, everybody should get paid, or I shouldn't get paid, and we all should be in the same boat. If we're in a boat in the ocean that's leaking, because I'm getting paid, I'm expected to bail you out, or because I'm getting paid, I'm expected to have all the freebies, bail it out. There's something wrong here, and it's partly my fault, because I didn't read the bylaws, both bylaws, for the Airports Authority of Oxnard and Camarillo. But that's been a mistake that's been allowed to go too long. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for, and since we have legal counsel here, clarify for me, we're always learning. So the speaker cards, my understanding is that the speaker cards are for the items that we're discussing, not for authority comments or director comments. Am I incorrect in that? Or I have no problem taking someone's speaker card and having them speak, but I've been told that that's not, it's not the time for the public to be speaking. So help me out there, clarify.
I actually don't know what this body's procedures are. Generally speaking, a public body can set its own procedures and require that all public comments be done one way or the other, including time limits and that sort of thing. So
Okay.
I don't want to speak out of turn.
No. That's what I'm trying to find out, and the history of
Yeah,
Mr.
Madam Chair, for
Zaragoza.
example, I'm sure the city council does it in the same thing. Board of Supervisors, once, the supervisors are in discussion, traditionally, we don't allow the public to come in and comment on those issues. However, if we have a specific item, that item says, okay, do we have any speakers on this specific item? I don't have any cards on that item 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. If there's no items, and then there, then you gave the person or the opportunity to speak on that specific item.
The one thing I am confident in saying is that the Brown Act does require that you allow a public comment.
And they don't have to even submit a card, or just come in and say, hey,
Right.
I'm going to talk on that item.
Well, for all goodwill, if we could just have that addressed for the next meeting, and if we can have the gentleman come up and speak for your 3 minutes,
And that's part of the.
and let's just make sure we're clear. We have Paul, but then also we have the Timms.
Dave Timms.
Dave Timms,
My
sorry.
name's Paul Debashir, and
Yes.
I'm a hangar owner at Oxnard. And my comment is related to an item on the agenda, and thanks we don't have to have a speaker card, but
Yeah.
I
Right.
submitted
That's
one.
true.
Yeah,
So when Mr. Timms came up, he wanted to address the authority on the director's report, which is on the agenda.
Okay.
And that's, I'm assuming, I didn't get to hear the
I-
rest of his comments. So for him to be denied the right to speak as to an item on the agenda, I think is a little bit out of line.
no, and let me just clarify. There's no need to clarify. We will be hearing him speak. That's what we're trying to do right now, is clarify the rules and regulations of the meeting. Mr. Timms, if you could, I apologize for not letting you speak earlier. If you could speak on the comments for the director's report.
And Madam Chair, while he comes up, that's why it's so important that we have that strategic meeting and so for all of us to understand.
Thank you.
We had ad hoc meetings some months ago, and in the ad hoc meeting, we discussed the right of appeals. And we wanted to have included in our lease agreement a system or a right of appeals. And Todd McNamee at the time, and Jorge also, were adamantly against including a provision for appeals for a complaint. And it was said that the appeals process is already in place, and that is you can go to the commission, you can go to the authority, you can go to the county board of supervisors, and hear your case heard there. And so here we are, and reading the bylaws of the Airport Authority, the authority shall at all times at its meetings set aside a time for public comment and inputs and to the matters at hand. It shall hear all complaints, suggestions, and viewpoints from airport users, lessees, and parties of interest. The authority shall give fair, open-minded consideration to public comment and make its disposition public at all meetings. So this was the process that Todd McNamee told us was in place for an appeals process. We brought it here, and I'm kind of disappointed that there's no decision made on it.
Thank you.
If I could comment, the process would have worked had there not been lawsuits. Once the lawsuits take place, David, there's no way that we can get in the middle of them, because then there's only one half that can talk and the county can't talk. So I understand. That's my frustration too.
Okay.
November, Commission Authority did not meet. December, the Commission Authority did not meet. Here it is January. This is the first time this body has met.
True.
Okay.
Are there any comments, going back to the authority comments? Is there any others? Sean?
Just being the new kid on the block, I just want to say hello, introduce myself, Sean Mulchay, Camarillo City Council. I am looking forward to serving on the authority with all of you great people. Some of you I know, some of you are fresh faces, and I hope to get to know you. I do want to comment on one thing, and it's in regards to some of the rules and/or how we operate these meetings. I would suggest possibly entertaining adapting something like Robert's Rules of Order or Rosenberg's Rules of Order, so that we may bring a little bit more order.
I appreciate your comments. I do have some comments for tonight, and it's regards to Todd McNamee. We unfortunately have had some meetings that have been pushed out, and it has been a while since the memories of Todd to say our respects, and we celebrated his life. And it was an amazing experience to hear how many people he touched, and not just in Oxnard or Camarillo, but worldwide. And the people that came from AOPA and all the different associations, I really appreciate everyone being there. It meant a lot to their family and to the boys and to our staff. Our staff has gone through a lot. We do not see it on a daily basis, and it's easy to say one thing or another, but until you live and get in their shoes and see what's going on, it's a whole different thing. So I would just like to pay my respects and thank him for his dedication and adjourn in memory tonight.
Madam Chair, 2 seconds. I was there too, and I just want to commend his wife for sharing. It was just phenomenal what she did, and the son, it was just, and the flyby and just the attention that was given to Todd was just phenomenal. Yeah.
So thank you for everyone for respecting his life. Have a good night.